Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Gruver. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Mefford.
And I am Kathy Gruver, and we are very excited to have another guest back. We've got a very dear friend of mine who's going to teach us a lot about houses and condos and maybe apartments and like all that kind of real estate-y sort of stuff. I'm really excited to introduce Allie Edwards. Thanks for being on the show, Allie. Woo-hoo.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So tell everybody like what your background is, how you got into real estate, because it's a good story. It's not definitely not a straight story of how you got to real estate.
No, definitely not. I'll try and make it brief, but started out as a physical occupational therapist, because most people don't know what that is. Mm-hmm. And I started in hand therapy. So I immediately focused into one genre of therapy, which was the best thing I ever did. Did that for 25 years and worked in hospitals and corporations and started my own hand therapy clinics around New York and California. That's how I got here to California, because I'm originally a New Yorker. And then I decided after 25 years, I got into investing like in probably about 5 years ago. And so I'm like, I think I really like real estate and I really don't want to do medical anymore. And so I decided to get my license after 5 years of learning how to invest in real estate. Because I guess I felt like I wasn't getting taken seriously. So I was like, maybe I need a license, So that's what I did. I got my license in 2019. But I've always loved houses, always loved architecture of houses, big houses, and running through houses, all that stuff, even when I was a kid. And so I quit my job. I waited a year, but I just decided quit the job. And because the only way to really get into it is to go head first. Took me a while, Kathy knows. I haven't looked back since that. I'm super excited. And it's not like I'm making millions of dollars at all. I'm just happy to be in a field that I love, which is real estate. So that's how I got here.
Yeah.
Well, I think just from your, because again, we always talk about what we talk about, and then we talk about what we're not talking about too. So it's what you just described there, right, is something that so many people go through, right? We start off, we get into a career, we're doing something, and then all of a sudden we realize it's not really what I love doing anymore. Mm-hmm. And so you decide to make a change, and again, it's okay to make a change, right? Even though you'd been doing the OT-PT therapy for 25 years, yeah. We're allowed to make a change, right? Mm-hmm. And, also with that, right, you can't be half pregnant sort of deal, right? And so
sometimes
that would be a little awkward, right? What, do you get the morning sickness but not the weight gain, or anyway?
Oh, we call that college.
yeah but that at some point we have to have the courage, I guess, right, to actually, like you said, just quit your job, start mm-hmm. the other, and a lot of people don't have the courage to do that. So what gave you the courage to finally cut ties and move forward with where you felt like your life needed to go?
Well, interestingly, like I was saying, I didn't think people were taking me seriously, right, with investing versus maybe having a real estate license. It was the same. And once I got into real estate, it was like, okay, so we have this new person. I work at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, California Properties here in Santa Barbara. And, it was like, well, who is she? She's at her other job. I mean, how can you be taken seriously? It's no one's fault. It's just the nature of the beast. So I'm like, oh, how funny. I'm in this situation again and in a different way. And so, of course, with Kathy's help, just sort of putting me in in the tracks, right? Because it's easy to go off into another track. I was able to, come up with different scenarios as to, well, what would happen if, you quit your job, and what would happen if, you didn't make money for the next year? How do you, hold on from that? Or how do you have a net, if you will, like, because people want a net, and there's never really a full net, but there's enough net that you could sort of jump, and it'll eventually kind of just show up. And that's what I'm realizing is, and it's because I quit the job and went head first that the net appeared. It's kind of a weird thing, but it's hard to see that. I took risks, but I took calculated risks. I saved a ton of money, and I sold some investment properties to make up for the salary that I would be missing. And I felt good about it. And I haven't looked back since, to be honest. So.
Well, and you used the word happy, right? You're happy now.
Yeah.
Right. So you've found what it is that you're supposed to do, which we can do all kinds of stuff. Why not just do something that actually makes us happy?
Right.
Even if it doesn't make us as much money as we could make from other things, right? Because I think that's a mistake that so many people make. We just chase the money and do a job that we hate. We hate our life, we hate ourselves, we hate people around us, but we're making money.
Right.
Like, who cares?
Right.
Go the other
Steady
way.
Paycheck.
Yeah, go the other
exactly.
way.
Well, and to that point, Jason, we can pick that path that makes us happy. And then when it stops making us happy, when you don't want to do that career, because you started as a hand therapist that you liked doing, you loved that job until you didn't. And then it's like, okay, now let's change. You can pivot on that, as so many of us have. And I think that is so scary. And I have so many coaching clients that are in that situation. They want to go start their own business, or they want to quit the job, or they want to leave the relationship, or they want whatever it is, they want to make a change and they just don't know how, because it's the fear can be so paralyzing, because you don't see that net. You don't see that net until you're coming towards it. You go, oh, all those open spaces, that's actually the pieces of a net that I can just bounce around in. Okay, perfect. So yeah, no, and that's exactly what I was focusing on too when she told that story was, how'd you pivot? Yeah, so good. So let's go back to what we're talking about, unless we want to keep going down that path. But so real estate.
Yes.
I remember buying my first property. It was terrifying because they hand you this stack of paper. It's like a tome of stuff with words you don't understand. And thank God we trusted our real estate agent. I mean, that was really it. And the escrow person. They saved us. They held our hand and walked us through that. And we stumbled upon a real estate agent. It was literally the first guy that answered the phone. That's who we ended up going with.
Wow.
We're a little smarter now, all of us. So how do you find a good real estate agent? I mean, what does one look for? How do you get found and connect with those clients?
Well, it's funny you said that, because according to the National Association of Realtors, I believe it's it's a very high percentage, like 79% of people actually do go with the first realtor that they see. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's not bad. I don't think it's bad. I think I think some people just know when they have an honest person, and that also, according to National Association of Realtors, is the most important, is that they are honest and trustworthy and integritous. Is that a word? I don't know. I just made it up.
Now.
It is now.
Integritous, yeah.
Allie's book of words. There's several in there. And so it's a very high percentage of people. And then, then I think it's a little lower at, like, I don't know, 20% will go like with two, they'll check with two different realtors, and then down the road. But it's rare that they get past 2 or 3. It's usually 1 or 2. And then they figure it out. Or sometimes it's 1, and then they're like, yeah, no. And then they'll find someone else. And it really is geared towards, I think, 2 things: is honesty and communication. That's all you really need to do as a realtor to your, potential seller or buyer, in my opinion, is, contact them, talk to them, communicate with them, ask a lot of questions, And of course, be honest, don't think you're going to try and swing a deal behind their back. I wouldn't do that to anybody, but it's just,
Right.
but that happens, so I think that's number one in finding a real estate agent that you trust. And then after that, you can find one at open houses,
Mm-hmm.
and you can interview, right? So if you just, maybe you don't have one, but you can, go to the open houses in the area and you'll see different ones holding them open, hosting, and then you can ultimately sort of interview them without them. We know you're interviewing us, by the way, but it goes both ways, right? So, but it's just another way you can find a great real estate agent.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I think that in-person contact is so important to get to see the person, meet them. This is why I think every real estate agent has their photo on their business card, right? Because they want that recognition and they want that, look at my happy, smiling, trustworthy face. I'm going to get you in the house you want, kind of thing.
Hopefully the picture is up to date.
Yeah.
Is that like dating profiles too, where people have like 20-year-old pictures on it?
It's like, that was me when I was 20. Would you still like to work with me?
Yeah.
Well,
look how cute I was.
But back to your point, right? That's one of those, if you were online dating, right, and you show up for your first date and the person's picture is like from 20 years ago,
right,
that automatically shows that, hold it, maybe that person is trying to hide something, or maybe they're not as honest as they say they are, right? And again, I told you before, I was actually in the business for a little bit many years ago, and there was always kind of the joke, but I think it's a perception that is out there too, which is, like you said, most people just grab the first person that comes along. They see it as a transaction. It's more than that, and we can talk about that too, because it's really a relationship. So if you but we'll get there, right? But most, unfortunately, realtors don't have that great of an image, if you will. We used to joke that we were one notch above used car salesmen, right? Which is sad, because again, we see used car salesmen typically as being somebody who's slimy, who's trying to get you to buy this lemon car that nobody else will buy, right? It's one thing when it's a car. It's different when you're talking about hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in a house, right? And especially here in California, where we all are, it's, I don't know what the median house price is, but it's close to $1 million, I think, in the state.
Yeah, it's over.
It's over $1 million for the median.
Depending on what part that you're in. Yeah. But,
yeah. And so it's important, like you said, to find out, does this person seem honest? Because, and maybe you can talk to this, right? Because I think the fact that almost 80% of people are just grabbing the first person they see, they think it's a transaction. They think it's just somebody filling out papers for them. But maybe talk more about the relationship side of it, because it's not a transaction. You're going to be at the hip with this person for how long typically?
It depends, but with so with buyers, you could be with them for a year. I call her my mother-in-law, but we're not married, but she's my mother-in-law. She was with her realtor for a year, and back and forth, just with so I would think you create a relationship at that point for sure. But on a seller side, it could be as depends if you knew them already. But if you didn't know them already, it could be 30 days, could be some transactions they close in 2 weeks. So, but
you love those as the agent.
Right?
Yeah.
But you're always creating a relationship, I think, no matter what. So 2 weeks to 30 days it's very similar to my past experience as a hand therapist. I would see people and I use this as my, Kathy knows this. I was very afraid, nervous. How am I going to be a real estate agent? I don't, just a lot of doubts, a lot of self-doubt. But really, when you think about it, my past as a hand therapist, I created relationships with people. I would sit with them for 3 months. Most of the time it was a 3-month sort of stint to get them better. And usually by the end of the first visit, I had rapport locked in. And it was, I would say that I would go as far as to say that's somewhat of a gift. I'll be honest.
Yep,
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But it was also about being comfortable in the position. So now as an agent, I struggle a little bit, not to necessarily build rapport, but to ask the right questions. And that's what it's about. That's how you build a relationship, because we like to talk about ourselves. So, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's how you build it. You ask a lot of questions. So, and the relationship can be as long or short as you make it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered the question, maybe in a roundabout way.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, because it's kind of interesting in real estate, because unless you're an investor, right? So you kind of understand this. I mean, if you're an investor, so you're doing multiple transactions, then you'll typically have a long-term, closer relationship with a realtor. But for most people, you only buy or sell a house every 3, 5, 10 years, right? And so a lot of times, and I've seen this in my own life, whether I was on the buy or the sell side, right? I don't think I ever used the same realtor for more than one transaction.
That's common.
Well, and because, again, I mean, part of it was, I moved states, so that was part of the issue. But even in those geographies, and again, maybe this is a lesson for realtors, right? Is they treated me as a transaction. I never saw them or heard from them after the transaction either. And it's like, hey, you know what? In a couple of years, I'm going to be buying a different house. But nobody really treated me from a relationship. It was just the transaction.
Exactly. And that's something that I don't know who I've had these conversations with, probably my mentors in the past, but it's really about maintaining that relationship after.
Yeah.
It makes total sense. Yeah. Right.
Well, and it's any profession, whether it's a speaking gig, if I immediately message the organizer and say, thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to see the feedback. Here's some of my other talks. Please let me know how I can help you out. It's about fostering those relationships. And I think so much of what we do, we look at as transactional. It's this, and Jason and I talk about this all the time. You get connected to someone on LinkedIn, and then you get this 30-paragraph sales pitch of how they're going to make you millions of dollars with you sitting in your living room. That's transactional. That's not building a relationship, right? So I think that's a lesson for no matter what profession you're in, of having spinoffs and having that relationship move forward. Yeah, I mean, like if I went to go sell my property in Paso Robles, I have no clue who that real estate agent is. I mean, it's been 15 years, but I don't remember his name. I've never ever heard from the guy again. I have no clue. I have no idea.
Right. And the idea is to maintain via any sort of relationship medium, like, now there's email and text message. And my thing is handwritten note cards. Yeah. I mean, there's times where I'm sitting at my desk now and I feel like this, like all I do is write note cards. It's like, but people love mail. Yep. They still like getting mail. I don't care what anyone says, especially if it's not a bill. And those are the old tried and true ways of maintaining the relationship, and they work. They still work. Forget about videos and Instagram and I'm sure all that works too, but I'm sort of more of the old school method of like call and write a card, or even if it's once in a while, like this month I'm sending 300 letters, and on the backside of the letter is a recipe from my grandmother. These are the little things. And whether or not I've met these people in person or not, it's just a small little piece of, here's me and I'm here for you. And if you have questions, it's not all about a transaction. So.
No, well, and as you're talking there, because again, this is true for realtors, but everybody listening, this is relationship advice in life, right? And again, I think about how many people I know, they only reach out to me when they want something.
Mhm.
right? And again, I mean, these could be people that I've known for a long time, but that, picking up the phone, sending a text, commenting on social media on something
Right.
they're doing, a lot of these things, to where, if you don't have relationships with people, it's probably because you're not doing the things to have relationships with those people, right? And
Right.
it takes some effort on our part
Mhm.
to actually reach out. And I've started trying to do this more. I've gone back and forth on being good or bad, but when I think about somebody, I try to send them a message, and even still, if it's just something like, hey, was thinking about you today, hope everything is fine, move
Mhm.
on with the rest of my day.
Right.
But just like that letter showing up in the mailbox that you
Mhm.
send, and somebody goes, oh, that's nice, and you turn it over, and it's like, oh, grandma's apple pie, I love apple pie. I don't know what the recipe is,
It was it was lasagna because
everybody loves lasagna.
grandma's lasagna. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that little act,
Mhm.
it's an act of showing that you care and love for somebody else too, right?
Mhm.
I mean, again, I'm thinking, right? You're looking at this going, wow, how cool would it be for all these people to make grandma's lasagna and to just be
Right.
loving it, right?
But
Well,
so yeah, go
well,
ahead,
I was gonna say
Kathy.
it brings the human element in. It makes you a person,
Right.
Allie. It personalizes that relationship. Here's
Mhm.
my grandmother's recipe. That's
Mhm.
so cool. That's what friends do.
Right.
So it immediately moves you out of this. Here's this woman that sent me a postcard again about she wants to buy my house,
Right.
into, oh my God, she went to the trouble of handwriting an envelope and sending me this letter, and it's like that. People remember stuff like that.
Right.
They really do. And it is about fostering those relationships, regardless of what industry you're in. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I made a point of saying it's, grandmother's recipe, and of course, right, people are always like, "Oh, you're Italian, you must have great recipes," and I'm like, "Yeah, my grandmother did. I don't do." Yeah, it's called takeout.
Right, yeah.
But so what I
And
did
someone's
was
grandmother probably made that.
right, and my grandmother's probably rolling over in her grave right now. But I took the recipe and I tweaked it a little, and I wrote, grandmother's recipe, and then like the marinara sauce, and then in parentheses I wrote, go ahead, use jar sauce, I won't tell, that kind of thing, and no boil lasagna, because the lasagna, if you boil them too much, see, this is the thing, all you non-Italians, if you boil the lasagna too much, it gets wet and soggy, and then you go and you layer it, and then your lasagna is soggy. So you use the no boil ones, and you just layer them dry, and then the moisture from the cheese will just perfect. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it with the
I
lasagna.
like it. I like it. I like it. And that's a perfect place, because of course we're out of time.
I know, now I'm getting hungry. I'm like, I need me some lasagna.
I know. I didn't get one of those letters, so
Oh, you'll be getting one.
Yeah.
In person, of course.
Of course. Cool. This is so great. So yeah, I mean, it goes back to relationships. It goes back to following your passion and knowing that if you do and you want to change your mind later, it's okay. I mean, Jason and I have switched careers so many times, and we still have so much life ahead of us to maybe make another change. Just do what makes you happy. Take that risk. We say that all the time. Go for it. It's a matter of just figuring out what you really want and following that path. There's going to be a net there for you. As a trapeze artist, I promise you, there's a net there for you.
There's a net. In college, they said that we were literally in OT school, and they're like, oh, and this, statistics will say that you'll change your career at least twice in your life. I think that was what they said, 2 times or 3 times. And I'm sitting there appalled, because I'm like, I'm giving you 80 grand and you're telling me I'm going to change my mind? Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently that happens, I guess.
Yeah. Well, sure. And as a theater major, I kept getting that input from the adults of, well, what happens when this career doesn't work? And I remember being so offended of, what do you mean I'm going to go to Hollywood and it's going to work? Well, you should have a plan B. And it's like, I'm glad I did. The plan B unrolled from plan A, but now I've got plan B, C, D, E. It's just things shift. And just like you said, Jason, we end up exactly where we're supposed to be. So
yes.
Cool.
Oh, great stuff. And again, I mean, like you said, we were planning to talk about something else, but you know what? This relationship and this whole idea of changing and having the courage to go after something that makes you happy, right? Instead of just going after the money. I mean, so many people need to hear that, because a lot of people, the reason they're miserable is they hate their job, they hate what they're doing, and that carries over into the rest of their life.
Yep.
Yes.
Right. And so just, you know, if you want to be a teacher, if you want to be a realtor, if you want to be a, you know, sidewalk artist, just go do it. And, you know, don't worry about the money, figure out how to make it work, but do something that you love and have the courage to change, because that's how we make the world better around us too, is we got to make it better for us.
Right. Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, it becomes insidious, you know, if you don't really care for what you're doing.
Yeah, it affects everything. It does. So Allie, tell people how they can reach you if they'd like to get in touch with you.
So I am on Instagram at Allison Edwards RE for real estate. And the same for Facebook. My regular Facebook is under Allie Nardo, Nardo, which is my Italian last name, but it's my maiden name. I'm at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services California Properties in Santa Barbara on State Street. And let's see, what else can I give you? My email, if you want to reach out to me right away, is Allie,Ally, Edwards, EDWARDS at BHHScal.com. And yeah, so feel free to reach out. I'm always here for questions. If you like stats, I got stats. Yeah, and life is not a transaction. So I just want everyone to know that I don't treat it that way, and nor should you. So
yeah, love it, love it, love it. Excellent. This has been such a fun conversation. As always, we never know where it's going to go. I love when people say, what are we going to talk about? I'm like, oh,
I don't know. I know. I'm like,
depends on where we go. Cool.
We never know until we go there.
We never know until we go there. Cool. And there might be sound effects. We don't know. I'm Kathy Gruver. I can be reached at kathygruver.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So go out, have a great week, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.
See ya.